Right.
Hello, I'm Ryan Wisniewski, the College Financial Guide. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to get the maximum amount of money to pay for college. We're going to go over how to pay less for college, who gets financial aid and how it's awarded, how public universities and private universities award aid, bonus tips on how to receive even more aid, the coming changes in the financial aid landscape, what a college planner does, and what planning you should be doing now at every age. I want to pose a hypothetical to you. What if your mortgage disappeared? How would you react? What would you do? How would it change your life? That'd probably save you 10 to 30,000 a year or more depending on the house that you live in. Well, what if you could get college for half price? And let's say that this magical half price college was available in the place you wanted it to be. It could be in a rural setting, it could be an urban campus, maybe a suburban campus. It could possibly be in any state that you want it to. And let's say it was the same quality education, just a smaller school, right? And let's say that when you came out, you were getting the same salary. But there's a catch. It's a lesser known school. So you may not have the bragging rights that you would if your kid had a big name college. And their friends may not have heard of it. Would you take that deal or not? Well, I'm here tonight and I'm going to start with my story to tell you how you can get more money, how you can save half price or more on a given college decision. So in my case, I was accepted at Cornell University. I'm a football player. If you look and you squint in the background, you could see me, the tallest guy in the back row. Cornell is a huge sticker price. There's no merit aid at Cornell. And as a kicker, everybody there is graded on a bell curve. So all these best and brightest people, the average is a B minus. If you get below average like I did, then you're getting C's. Needless to say, wasn't a great fit for my situation. I enjoyed my 2 years of football, but I decided to transfer to the University of Arizona. There I had a 4.0 GPA. I paid half the price, and I had a similar outcome to Cornell, salary-wise. At the end of the day, there's a lot of myths about college education. Some of them come from the media, some of them come from a lot of different sources, talking to your friends. The biggest myth of all is that if you go to one of the top ranked schools, you're guaranteed to end up in the upper crust of society. You're going to have one of the best outcomes. I'll tell you what, this isn't true at all. Okay? Those top ranked students that I went to school with, or those top ranked kids that I went to school with, a lot of them didn't end up a whole lot better off than I was. A lot of people think that if you have low grades and test scores, that there's no school that's going to give you a decent price for tuition. Also not the case. I've worked with plenty of kids that have average and below average test scores and grades, and I've still gotten them very competitive packages at colleges. Some people think that schools are going to help families that are in need. That just because I don't have any income or savings, I'm going to get a free ride. Also not the case. Schools do not necessarily meet all of your financial aid, and I'm going to talk about that more tonight. It's somewhat true, but it's a myth that universities are nonprofits. They're nonprofits, but they're not charities. At the end of the day, universities are businesses with very high fixed costs. And those admissions officers, they're the ones that are making the decisions that are going to fund the university operations, pay all those salaries, pay for those big buildings and those lazy rivers. And they're going to use their donor base to make up the rest. The final myth that I want to tackle tonight is that kids need to apply to 15 or more schools. You may read the articles that come out every now and again. So-and-so kid got into all the Ivy League schools and 30 of the top schools in the country. I say that kid wasted his money on all those application fees, and he wasted his time writing all those college essays. You don't need to apply that many schools. You can have a list of 5 or 8 and be confident that that's a good list. Here's the reality. There are name brand schools and there are generic brand schools, right? The name brand schools are the ones you read about all the time. They're the ones that hit the top ratings. They're the flagship schools in your state. They're the flagship private schools that everybody talks about. You're going to pay the premium prices for those schools, especially if it's a flagship school in another state. You can almost guarantee they're not going to give you money. But if you look at there's other schools that offer a similar quality education, but at a much lower price. You can usually find them by looking at how high their admit rate is. If it's 75% plus, chances are that's a school that we're looking at. You can also look for schools that have rolling admissions or that are going to admit after May 1st. At the end of the day, these schools are going to put together the largest merit aid awards for the students they desire. This isn't for slackers. They're not going to give you money just for sending an application in. But if you put in the work, the same work that you would put in for that name brand school, you're going to get a much better offer from them because they want you more than you want them. And keep in mind, this is the same quality education. We're going to talk about smaller class sizes, right? So that means that your child's going to matter. There's also a lot less stress because if you apply to this kind of school, your child's going to get in. You don't have to sweat it and worry about everything until the last minute. So the way I think of this is like buying a Tesla versus buying a Hyundai. Both things are going to get you to work, right? The Tesla is fancier, it's going to turn some heads, but the Hyundai is going to accomplish the same thing. And once you're inside the building, nobody knows what kind of car you drive. They just pay attention to the work that you produce. So before I go any further, I want to introduce a very important key concept. And I'm going to talk more about this as well. So we talked about merit-based aid. Now think about financial need. Okay? This is the basis of need-based aid. So the cost of attendance, which is the all-in cost of the school, the tuition, the fees, the books, the room and board, minus the expected family contribution, which is soon to change to student aid index. That's a fake number they calculate using your income and your assets, your child's income and assets, the ages of the children, and the number of kids that you're in school. The cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution equals need. And that need number is how they determine how much aid you'll receive. However, that number is not free money that they're going to give you. You're not going to get 100% of that unless you apply to certain schools. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. So I want to share with you 3 types of families that I've worked with in the past. And this will illustrate how schools meet need. Is it going to be through need-based aid, or are they going to provide more merit-based aid? Well, here's family number 1. This is a single mother with $60,000 in income, and let's say she has $50,000 in assets. This mom's going to receive need-based aid at every school. However, well, I should say nearly every school. Some schools, as I said, they just don't give that much need-based aid if they do at all. But this family must do everything accurately and on time to get the maximum amount of money they're eligible for. And most importantly, they need to make sure they could pay for the rest. There has to be enough aid available and loans available to cover all 4 years of the education. This could be really tricky, especially if it's a family that has poor credit. Then there's category 2. Okay, These are the people I encounter more in the suburbs. I find married couples, they have 180,000 in income, let's say 100,000 or so in assets. They're going to receive financial aid depending on which school they choose and how their income and assets are positioned. And then there's category 3. This is the doctor or the managing director that's making 350,000 a year. They have investment properties and they have business interests. No matter what any financial person does for them, they will not qualify for need-based aid. Just strictly the income alone puts them over the mark. However, they still have to fill out the forms and go through the process to get merit-based money. And then they need to think about tax-efficient payment options, the impact of this payment on the rest of the goals they have, but also they need to think about, do you want to write a smaller check for the same education? So when we talk about financial aid, where does that even come from? The first source, and this is the university's favorite, is the federal government, because they don't have to touch it. You fill out a form, and if your income is very low, you'll be eligible for Pell Grants or Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grants. That's free money that's available. It's a government program that it works for everyone that qualifies. Some colleges will also have a work-study program. And then there are subsidized and unsubsidized Stafford loans and Perkins loans. These are what you typically think about when you think about federal loans that are available. The only problem is you're limited to $31,000 over all 4 years of university. So $31,000, depending on the school that you choose, may not even cover a semester's worth of expenses. From there, a lot of times the universities will then say, well, you can also take a Parent Plus loan. But that means that you would have to co-sign with your children and you have to have good credit. One place you may want to consider also when you go to this decision is your state's higher education authority. In Pennsylvania, it's pheaa.org. If you're an in-state resident, they have loans that have lower interest rates, they have grant programs, and they have other special programs for teachers, healthcare professionals, women and minorities, veterans, and others. I always recommend to every family I work with, take the time to look at that website, look at what's available, because you may be able to get some money through there. Now, the source people don't usually think about is that a lot of this money comes from the colleges and universities themselves. Private universities and public universities have endowment funds. And these endowment funds are partially used to offset tuitions. It's outside of the federal and state money that's available. Now, they do award this merit money on a first come, first served basis. You have to have your ducks in a row and you have to be ready. Typically speaking, as a rule of thumb, the preferential packages will go to the students in the top 25% of the applicant pool. This is where you want to be one of the big fish in a small pond. Then you'll get more money than you would other places. You can also fill the gap with private student loans, but it's important to understand the terms. Is there a potential for a cosigner release, which means after a couple of years, the parents are no longer responsible for the loan? Could you find a place that is a lower rate or no origination fee? Whatever the case may be, you have to have good credit to apply for these private loans. And I recommend that you start the process 90 days before your tuition's due. You also should consider whether you should pay with another source of funding, right? You could think of maybe using your home equity. You could borrow against your 401k, or think about another way that you can pull money out that's not going to have these consequences. Some people think their magic ticket's going to be an athletic scholarship. Well, I'll tell you right now, it may not be all it's cracked up to be for you. If you're in a Division 1A school, then you can absolutely get a full scholarship for your education. That's usually, though, for the head count sports: men's football, men and women's basketball, women's volleyball, tennis, and gymnastics. But even though you go to a 1A school, you have to remember every year those coaches are recruiting to replace you. You may never see the field. You may never see the court. And that sports training is going to be year round. So they own you for those 4 years. And if that coach that likes you leaves, you may not get a shot to play at all. Then there's a Division 1 AA school. Division 1 AA is still competitive, but they may not offer any scholarships or merit-based aid. Cornell did not offer any aid for my sports program, my time in sports there. Then there's Division 2 schools. A lot of times those Division 2 schools only offer a limited number of partial scholarships. And they're still going to require you to train year-round for the sport. And finally, there's Division 3 schools. In this case, again, there's no sports money available. It's financial aid and it's merit, and they're training throughout the season. So what I encourage families to do, save your money on the expensive recruiting services. They overpromise and underdeliver. Just look at your sport. Look at the team you're trying to play on. Does your child have the size, speed, and skill at the position they need? Because that's all that matters. How does your child stack up against the roster? Also, keep in mind, injuries happen all the time. Is that scholarship going to be guaranteed for all 4 years? Or are you going to lose it if your child, for whatever reason, can't play? So what I encourage you to do, if your child is planning on playing sports in college, is pick the best academic fit, not the best sports program. You don't want them to they're going to be missing out on the full college experience. And the other thing that comes up is kids get disillusioned. You know, that all those smiles during the recruiting process, they turn into 4-letter words and miserable cursing during the sports season. It's hard to encounter that, especially if you were the best Mr. Everything at your high school or Mrs. Everything. Going to college, you're up against a bunch of kids that are just as good as you. So a lot of kids will drop out of sports. They just get burned out. They don't want to do it anymore. So pick the best academic fit. Another place that people can get money is through private scholarships. I like to go on myscholly.com. You can pay for it and you can search. Now, it's a very small percentage of the aid. Only 7% of undergraduates actually get these kinds of scholarships. So this is really a supplemental activity after you do everything else we've talked about. You're really looking for the crumbs. And honestly, this is best left to your child. Now, I'm going to go through briefly how you apply for financial aid, just to make sure that I cover it. And everybody, no matter who you are, is going to be filling out the FAFSA, Free Application for Federal Student Aid. I recommend, no matter what category your family's in, no matter how high or low your income is, go and fill out the FAFSA. That way you can get federal loans, and in some cases, the merit-based awards will be predicated on having filled out the FAFSA. Now, if you make mistakes, and let me tell you, there are frequently mistakes in these forms. Your results can get bumped, and it can add more time to processing, or your EFC could be much higher than it really should be. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you have questions in the FAFSA, you have to call the 1-800 number. And a lot of times you could be waiting on hold for hours. And they'll say, we might not even have the right answer for you. For certain schools, they require a separate form called the CSS profile and registration form. This is where you have to report home equity, more detail on your income and assets and expenses. You have to make it consistent with the other form. It's not easy to fill out. And finally, schools have their own forms. They have to be consistent with the other two, and the questions are similar. Some schools may even ask you to provide a business farm supplement or a divorce or separation agreement. It's a lot of disclosure, but at the end of the day, is it worth it? Well, that depends on what college you go to. So which college gives you the best shot at getting money? You have to look at their track record on the need side. Schools have a track record of how much need they meet. Some schools have made a commitment. We're going to meet 100% or 90% of a student's need. Others may only meet 30 to 60%. Those are, again, most likely the brand name schools. So remember, cost of attendance minus expected family contribution, right? So let's say the school's cost of attendance is $20,000 and the expected family contribution is $5,000. Then $15,000 is your need. Well, if that school only needs 50%, then they're only going to give you $7,500 in aid. So the real amount that you have to pay is $20,000 minus $7,500. So you owe $12,500, not $5,000. You have to know these statistics before you apply. Also, schools don't give 100% of what they say they're going to give. Some of the schools meet need with free money, others give mostly loans. Okay? The amount they meet with loans or work study is called self-help aid. You don't want to find out in April that all you're getting is loans. Schools have a history of what they've done in the past. This is public information, but it can be hard to find. Know the statistics of the schools you're applying to before you go. And then there's merit-based aid. As I said, need-based aid is limited, and I can almost guarantee you're going to be disappointed with what they offer you. The net costs after this aid can still be $40,000 or more. Again, merit-based awards from named brand schools typically are going to be lower. You're going to want to find who are the buyers, who are the people that are going to offer you the most and be the most competitive for your child. Make sure you have those schools on your college list. You want to be a top tier applicant if possible, which means you have higher GPA or test scores than the average applicant, and you want to be well prepared. You want to have the courses, you want to have the activities, you want to have good essays, and you want to have visited the school. You want to show some interest. If you do it right, this is where you get that half price school that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. So let's talk about a hypothetical family, the Jones family, okay? The Jones family has an EFC of 11,000. That means they probably have about 50,000 in income, maybe a little less. So remember, and we're going to talk about the Jones family applying to two different schools, Lafayette College and Penn State. So looking at Lafayette College, you're going to say, man, that's way more expensive. It's almost 80,000 a year. There's no way we should apply there. Well, let's just go through the math and let's think again. Lafayette College, after the 11,000 in EFC, the need number there is 68,362. At Penn State, the cost of attendance is 38,898 minus the expected family contribution. The need is 27,898. Here's the difference. Pay attention. Lafayette College meets 100% of the need, and 88% of that they're going to give in free money. Penn State, they'll meet 61% of the need, 17,000, and they're going to leave you 11,000 short of meeting your need. And only 73% of that is going to be free money. So which one's going to end up being cheaper in the end? Well, let's go through the comparison here. 80,000 at Lafayette College. The need is 68,000. They're going to come through with 60,000 in grants, free money, leaving you owing 19,210 net. At Penn State, their cost of attendance is almost 39,000. You take away the expected family contribution, you're left with about 28,000 in need. You're going to get about 12,500 in grants, so the net cost is 26,475. So for this Jones family, Lafayette College, despite having a higher cost of attendance, will actually end up having a lower net cost. But wait, there's more. What about merit-based aid? We're going to throw a third college in here, Albright. At Albright College, their all-in cost is about the same as Penn State. You're going to get $11,000 in expected family contribution, or in EFC, you have about 30,000 in need. Albright College says, hey, we're going to give you 24,889 in need-based grants. And here's the kicker, 22,000 in a merit aid scholarship. So at the end of the day, Albright College ends up at 16,841. There's your mortgage payment right there, folks. 26,000 net at Penn State versus 16,000 at Albright. Here's another bonus tip. You can negotiate for the best possible package. Not at Penn State, folks. They're not going to do this. But some schools do make mistakes. They miss a word. FAFSAs are black and white. There could be any number of reasons why your income is inflated, why your assets are inflated, or why you might be losing money. Universities will under-award on purpose. Why not try to see if people will take less? And they'll be competitive with other schools. The reason this is relevant, you have to know whether to accept the award they offer you or whether you should appeal it and go for more. And you have to know how to talk to the people in the financial aid office. If you use the wrong terminology, you're going to hit a stone wall. But if you talk to them the right way, they'll work with the admissions person that really likes you and wants you to come in, and they'll get you more money. The other thing to keep in mind is there are loopholes in this process where you can move money around, just like tax deductions, that can get you thousands more in need-based aid. Sometimes it's just a matter of having your money in the right account in the right place. This landscape is also changing constantly, right? So we have the FAFSA Simplification Act, which is coming next year, where the EFC becomes the SAI, and the number of questions drops from 108 to 36. The college loan environment is constantly changing, right? So we just had a release where they're going to update one of the repayment options. I'm not going to get into student loan repayments in this context, and I'm not going to talk about the forgiveness, but I'll say it's an evolving thing. I would say, just so you know, if you still have student loans or if you know someone that does, most likely the moratorium is going to expire in September. So get ready for that. There's also the Secure Act 2.0, that if you have unused 529 balances, that you can use that you can roll that over into a Roth IRA under certain circumstances. It's really important to understand the laws and tax provisions and how they impact college funding. So what are your options? You can definitely do this yourself. People do all the time. Just about every university has a net price calculator There's college data. There's different data sets online where you can go and find this information yourself. You can also make it a part-time job to attend webinars, read blogs, and go to Facebook groups. But unfortunately, this is a case where you're at risk of missing out on thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in aid. This process is time-consuming. People make mistakes in the forms all the time. And the most common mistake people make is they don't apply to the right schools. They miss the schools that are competing for your child. Or you can use me, College Financial Planning Service. You pay a flat fee for a personalized, easy to understand, actionable plan. I can help you project the merit-based and need-based aid from each school on your list. More importantly, I'm going to add schools to your list that are going to offer you more money that you've never heard of. I'll also look and identify the gaps in your student profile and the gaps in your education history and help you fill in what you can before it's time to apply. I'm also going to outline how you're going to pay. The money's going to come from your savings, from loans, or scholarships, or where it's going to come from. And then I can also support you through the application process as well. What this isn't, beware. There are a lot of people out there that do this process and claim that they're college counselors, when in reality, they're just pushing financial products. They may have a similar name to this, but at the end of the day, their goal is to sell you on life insurance or some other investment. I'll caution you now. I've seen people make some very costly mistakes in the name of trying to save a few bucks or trying to get some more need-based aid. It's not a good idea. The game is that it doesn't work as well as they project. And honestly, you'll do much better if you just have the right schools in your list. That'll be a much bigger factor in how much you can save. So when should you start planning? I recommend that you plan as early as possible. Aid is first come, first serve. So if your child is a freshman right now, start reviewing your income and savings options. Start considering courses and activities. Make sure you track their accomplishments, what they're doing every year, and think strategically about how to fill out that activity slate to get community service and things like that in there. In your sophomore year, that's when you want to start looking at the PSAT. That's when you want to start considering test prep. Then you want to look at activity. You want to, again, keep the activities going. You want to start the college research. This process takes a long time. Junior year, you're going to start building that college list. It's okay at this point to make it longer than it needs to be. That's when you definitely want to be doing test prep outside of school, or you can consider private test prep, especially if you have a child that learns differently or a child that needs additional help. That's when you want to start thinking about getting letters of recommendation. You want to start your college essays, and you want to start your college financial planning. Senior year, hopefully, if you've been doing this process right, you're wrapping up the research, you're getting your applications in, you finalize the list, submit everything, submit the financial aid forms. You'll get the awards usually in March, April, and then you should start applying for student loans once you pick the school you're going to go to. So we talked a lot today. What did we learn? First, school ratings are based on student demographics, not outcomes. There isn't a school out there that's being measured on how people do after they leave. Schools can be either the haves or the have-nots. The haves have the brand name and the prestige. The have-nots don't. But the have-nots typically are going to offer you more money. Financial aid can be based on need, or it can be based on merit. It can be free money, or it could be loans. This is the sad one for me. FAFSA forms are often messed up when families send them in. That creates costly delays and losses of money that they would have been eligible for. I had a woman that would have qualified for a Pell Grant only after she appealed for it. That's just one of many examples where mistakes can cost money. Also keep in mind, all public schools use only the FAFSA. Private schools have additional confusing forms. Financial aid is given out on a first come, first served basis. Once it's gone, it's gone. And just like buying a car, you usually have to haggle the right way to get a better deal. The sticker price means nothing. So here's what I'm going to offer you today. Book an appointment with me. We'll calculate your EFC. We'll determine what family category you're in. We'll talk about your merit and need-based aid potential, and I'll identify the gaps in your current preparation. I'll identify if you're on the right track, or I'll tell you if there's schools you need to add. You can book this directly using my Calendly link, calendly.com/Ryan Wisniewski. You can email me, Ryan@Financial Guide, or you can call me at 609-802-8324 during business hours and leave a detailed voicemail. Please take some time today and evaluate my workshop. Let me know how I did. Let me know what I can improve. I'm always looking to make this better, and this is a constantly evolving presentation. So you can take out your phone now, scan the QR code on the screen, or you can use this web link to click through. Thank you very much and have a great evening.